Welcome to another episode of Corporate CPR, where we breathe life back into your organization, projects, and processes, giving you insights to recovery and avoiding corporate mortality events. Today, we'll be talking about how to get your company to stand out in a crowded marketplace. And joining us to contribute to the conversation is Quinn Curtis. Welcome, Quinn.
Thank you so much for having me, Jana. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, you want to share with folks about your background?
Sure, happy to. So I'm currently a CMO, a Chief Marketing Officer for a incredible digital marketing agency called Disruptive Advertising. And as such, I get to lead both the sales and marketing teams, which is really fantastic and fun. And prior to that, about over a year ago, I've had lots of different fun capacities in the digital marketing space for the past 15 years, but most recently, prior to my current position, I was owning and running my own brand and marketing agency, which was a smaller boutique agency that serviced pretty fun clients, and then got courted over to be here at Disruptive. And I couldn't be happier. I love working with marketers and sales people, and just helping businesses grow is a real passion of mine.
Wow, nice. Well, actually, the first thing that comes to mind, and hopefully I don't throw you all off at all, if it's disruptive advertising, then the purple cow comes to mind, the elusive purple cow. It sounds like you know it. So do you want to maybe describe that and describe how we even maybe can find our purple cow?
Yes. Yeah, actually, it's a great question because I spent so much of my career, especially with my own business in those 6 years with my business. Prior to that, I was leading marketing for other organizations, but this was a constant conversation. So it's just, how do we find what makes us unique and special, and how do we stand out? It's a big deal. And what I've found over the years that kind of cracks me up in thinking about it is that it really is clarity. Of all the things you could do, I think there's just this level of clarity that is, for whatever reason, it's very difficult for those of us when we're in the business and working on the business, and it's just in the trenches for us to see that level of clarity and the differentiators, and just what makes us special. And so consistently, it was more about I think a lot of businesses have come to me over the years looking for me to help them find that purple cow, it's out there. And it's never out there. It's usually just right inside of their heart and their vision of what they've had for the company, or their favorite things about the company. It's, in just their attitudes or approach. I've just shifted a major portion of our sales efforts and marketing efforts to really focusing on, not just how we can do a great job in delivering our product and service here at Disruptive, but even just our approach is a differentiator. Our approach is part of our purple cow. So I think there's just different ways to think about that, that help open up the space. And I love in Traction by Gino Wickman, he talks about how every company needs their three uniques, is what he calls it. And he gives a great insight. He said that, one or two of them might be the exact same as another company, but it's you having those three uniques together that should be different. So I think that's also sometimes where we try too hard to be very, very different and very just go crazy with those, but we don't really need to. It needs to just it's that unique combination of how we put it together that actually is that purple cow for our business, versus some other creative crazy thing that usually involves a lot of let's reinvent the whole space, or let's turn everything on its head. I keep thinking about Southwest Airlines, for example. They came into a crowded airline space. There were lots of other airlines, and their three uniques, which I wish I could just recall offhand, but they took a very strong stance of we want to have affordable airline services, but we also want to have it with a smile. We want it to feel playful and fun and joyful. And so it was other companies might have that with the most luxury brand, and that it might be luxury that's joyful and happy, but it's their combination of affordable and joyful and happy that really makes Southwest who they are. And so I think as businesses, often overlook what makes us special, or we don't value it quite enough. And so I think there's just a good exercise of just, what are all the things that you love about the business? What are all the things that light you up about the business, and like start there. And if it starts to sound, well, everybody's saying that, they might be saying some of those things, but there's probably your unique combination of them that is actually your purple cow.
No, that's excellent. And so I guess you're talking about how it's hard though for people to, to see that because they're so in the weeds. So what are some of the ways that you help people, step out and look at that?
I think that just taking the time to ask yourself some of the questions is honestly, like, probably sounds like a silly answer, but even just, I mean, we're in our businesses working on them all the time, but how often do we take a day to like reset and have a vision day of like, what do we want this business to look like this next quarter or year? And usually we just kind of stay in the grind. So I think it's very similar. I felt a lot of times that it was just getting yourself to ask the questions, like, what does make us special? What are we really proud of here? What lights me up as the business owner, or as the whatever role you're playing in the company, like what lights me up about what's here? And like actually getting it down on paper or on a whiteboard with other members of the team, and starting to say, well, which ones do we want to just claim? Like, because there's this level of awareness that has to happen when you answer the questions, but then as soon as you've got it to some level of clarity, it almost like helps you rise up into your vision of what you've hoped the business to be as well. So I think then there's that aspect of putting your stake in the sand and saying, this is who we are, which then is where I like to see brands, coming up with maybe a vision statement, or like saying, these are our core values, or this is the DNA of who we are as a business, and starting to put that out on their about pages, in their profiles on social media, and having that kind of messaging filtering through all of their marketing. It's impressive how, like, it sounds kind of simple even as I'm describing it, but it's getting to that level of clarity, like making yourself sit down and ask those questions, that I think is the hardest part. Once you're clear, and it's just about a game of let's distribute and let's spread the word about it, which is a lot easier than stumbling through that lack of clarity phase.
I think one of the things that's been challenging though, like just thinking about our journey as a company, is sometimes it feels like everybody says the same thing, right? Like, so you talk about professional services, it's all about the IP and it's all about the people, right? And that's what it is for all of them. And so how to find, and I think we have, but just curious your thoughts on something like that, where, it does feel like everybody kind of says the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
How
Yeah,
to stand out.
I agree. I think that they are a lot of times saying some of the same things. But I think there's always little nuances of specifics of those same things that can be different and differentiators. So I would typically take clients through, and I do this now with this agency as well, of just, let's get really, really clear about our target market, because that's also an area where I think there's a lot more of your purple cow in when you really understand your target market and what you're after. And a lot of times, if you're going after a very broad audience, it's really hard for you to get more clear about what makes you special at the same time. So it's like, the more you're really clear on your target market of, this is the pain that they are in, this is what they're struggling with without what we have to offer, this is what they really want, this is how we change their lives and what happens for them, it starts to bring out some of those messages. So I think that's like one aspect, but it is a very crowded marketplace. So, I mean, I think that is, something we're just all dealing with. There's a lot of voices, especially social media makes it so anybody with any sort of business idea can hop in, look like an expert quickly, like have a brand and a logo, and it's tricky, right? And so I think that's kind of this other aspect that I'm seeing of how to stand out right now, is really, with that clarity around who you're trying to talk to, also to get your business out from behind the business and out, like communicating more. So like exactly what you're doing with the podcast, I think is so powerful to like let people see you and hear you and experience you, because that does more than like a cute marketing phrase ever could as well, to give that touch of, wow, we really love and believe in and trust Jana. Like that must
Mhm.
mean that company is incredible. And so we're looking at pushing a lot of boundaries with not only watching what we're doing with the brand for the business, but also watching how are we developing the personal brands within the business, so that we're leveraging both, because I just think there's a lot we can do there too.
Um, with you talk about finding your target market, and it might be interesting to talk about, because I think one of the things, I guess you could say, a mortality event, right, would be when companies try to be everything to everyone, but it's kind of scary to go all in. So what is your advice, I guess, there on figuring out, what, who you're speaking to, and then I guess overcoming the fear of going all in?
Yeah, I think that it's this place where we have to do a little bit of research as far as like addressable market and just understand that to some degree, which I've honestly been finding a lot of support there with leveraging AI to support me with researching some of those things. So like things that have been harder to find in a Google search, I'm having great success finding in like Chat GPT or Bard, in asking for some of that. But I think there is a little bit of a research period, but I would use research to confirm my assumptions and to like prove my concept a little bit more so than I would to like go find my target market, obviously. So I think that like I believe that the companies that are really going to stand out. In fact, God, I wish I had this quote handy. I just heard this quote the other day that was talking about how like the businesses of the past were relying on like manpower. The businesses are of now have been relying on like knowledge, but the businesses the future will be relying on heart. Right. And so we're seeing this kind of transformation of how well can a business actually show up to serve and connect with its audience. And so for your marketing to really work in that way, and your brand to even feel connective, I think the people at the top, the people behind the brand, have to have some passion and some heart for that target market that they're showing up to serve. And so I just really cautioned a lot of the business owners that I've worked with over the years of like, whenever they were saying, well, I think I should go after this audience because there's a lot of opportunity there, but it wasn't like who they were really excited to serve. I just would always caution them, hey, like the grass may look greener over there, but let's like see what you're most excited about. Let's get to know that audience, and let's make sure that there is an adequate opportunity there, because even if it's a saturated market, there's still a lot of opportunity to stand out and make a difference. I'm trying to remember, I think it's Manly Tees is the brand. I'll probably missay this, but a great example of a brand that they came into the space. It's already very crowded of clothing, and they're offering like plain t-shirts, right? And they came in with just some fun ideas and really getting at the pain points behind like t-shirts for men, and their growth has exploded. They are like a really fun, fast-growing company. So I think like here again, it just goes back to they were clear on who they were talking to. They were clear on like what made their product really solve that target market's problem. And that's what they showed up to serve with. It wasn't something, super catchy or clever as much as it was, we know who we're talking to.
Yeah, you touched on something that was actually going to be my next question, so maybe we can dive into it a little more.
Sure.
Is like I think marketing is going to be disrupted as as a function, in that you talked about how anybody can just start a company and get a brand, and it's true. You can first of all go out and use things like Fiverr or whatever and get a logo made, get collateral, and it looks professional, and yeah, it's really easy for anybody to do. And now though, with chat GPT, you can write a lot of marketing content that seems like it was written by, a marketer.
Yeah.
And I mean, even to the point that it can write blogs and So what do you see the future there, and how will marketing differentiate itself from AI even?
Absolutely. This is a hot topic. I lead a group of CMOs in a just discussion every month about what's trending and what's going on. We were talking about this in depth in our last connection because it's on everybody's minds, especially in the marketing space. And so what I'm seeing though, especially as I've had the opportunity with Disruptive being a top premier partner of Google, we get to kind of connect in and learn from their engineers of like, what are you guys seeing and what are you thinking of how things are going to affect what we're doing? And it's just more and more AI, right? In the future, it's not going away. It's going to only increase, which is pretty obvious. But I think of how it actually affects us all is I do think we're moving into this space where creativity is the new currency. Like we're out of this space where knowledge is the currency because knowledge is cheap. You can get knowledge quick anywhere on your phone in 2 seconds, right? But creativity is a different muscle that while chat GPT or AI can kind of mimic it, it cannot ever fully replace that human creativity, at least to the degree of what I believe humans can. And so, and I think that's just part of like our human nature of being able to be highly empathetic and highly able to connect heart to heart with somebody or feel what it might feel like to be in their shoes. Like AI can't, like it's only going to be as good as the inputs that we the humans put into it. And so I feel like that level of creativity is going to be those inputs that we're putting in to get far better output from the AI. But it's absolutely revolutionizing everything. And I think that the more that we are embracing it, learning to work with it, instead of being afraid of it, then I do think that that's a stronger direction to go overall.
Well, yeah, if you don't embrace it, you're just going to get left behind, because it's going to be like, you see the people who this might sound a little silly, but like hanging out with friends or family or whatever, and somebody's like, "Oh, I'm trying to figure out what this is," and one person puts one thing in the Google search terms, right, and somebody puts something else, and your results are different. And it's only as good as the question you ask Google. Well, it's
Yeah.
going to be even more so with Chat GPT. I've used it already to say, "Hey, I'm trying to say this. How do I say it punchier? Or how do I make it sound better?" And iterating through it. And, it's come up with some pretty cool things for me. But you do have to work out how to ask the right thing and how to know when you finally landed on something.
Yeah, which I think is like, I mean, maybe this is too doom and gloom for the podcast, but like, I think it is interesting how our current education model is set up.
Mhm.
It doesn't feel like it's supporting kids being ready to be able to do that. Like, I don't know that there's as much emphasis on creativity and problem solving and thinking outside of the box as there is just like getting the right answer, which is now so
Mm.
easily done with a machine. So it's kind of like life before calculators when everybody's doing math in their head or counting sticks, right? Like it's dramatically going to change the game. But I hope as a society that we'll be able to meet that change and level up our education and how we help each other and our kids like just grow more creative.
Yeah, uh it's interesting that you say that, because my daughter's 12, and I'm thinking, oh, I hope she doesn't figure out about Chat GPT, or she'll never actually do her own work. But on the other hand, it is a very information rich society where you can just find the answers. So what's the value as much in memorization, and more like you said, it should be more an emphasis on problem solving and logic and emotional intelligence and leadership, and how to synthesize things, because it's probably a lot more, can you synthesize information than can you recall information? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, if you've ever read any of Mark Manson's books, I like the stance that he takes of how he's looking at this, of that this is inviting us into a higher level of ethics. like we as a society have to be able to operate at a higher level of ethics than we have previously to handle all of these changes. So I think there's also like, including that in the mix of like, let's just make sure they're ready. And that's so fun. I have a 12-year-old as well. And
Nice.
I have actually 5 kids, but that's one of
Oh,
my is a 12-year-old. So
well, so ethics, that's an interesting thing then. How, because I've had wondered about that with like, because a company came out, we sometimes, freelance blog support, right? And they issued a, don't worry, we don't use Chat GPT and to write your blogs. And I'm like, well, part of me was like, why is that? Why is that a thing you're saying? And then I guess what are the ethics behind having AI write something for you and put it out as original content? Is that, I mean, I'm not judging here, so I'm just curious what your
right.
thoughts are
I know. I wish
or
there
what you've
was a
heard.
stance. Like I think that's where it's just overall we're faced with situations like this where we've never had to, there's no easy answer. Like, is that ethical? Is it not? Like there's been ghostwriting happening for years, right? So how is this very different from ghostwriting? But it is. And so it's just, yeah, it's a whole new ball game. I don't know, but I know like especially in marketing, I feel a big responsibility, and this is part of what gets me up every day to keep playing in this space is I think there's such a responsibility for a higher level of ethics in marketing
Mm,
specifically. So just how can we actually show up to serve our target markets that we're trying to connect with rather than showing up to sell? And I
mm,
have so much empathy for so many marketers who are out there and just so burnt out, who have become so jaded in the world because they've been pushing products and services that they do not believe in because they've
mm,
had to get their job, like to get their paycheck and have their needs met, right? And so my hope is that as we evolve, like it will hopefully help us cut out some of the fluff. Like even with the pandemic, we just got Google's like report of just where is society at right now, what are they focused on, and they pull this report every year based off of what everybody's searching for. And it was kind of refreshing because one of the things that they were seeing is a real trend away from so much like disposable commercialism. People are searching for things that like, I want something that's durable, I want something that's going to last, I want something that's made really high quality. And so it feels like, maybe that's going to happen, I hope, with marketing as well, where there's just so much ad blindness right now. People do, like, I sit down for TV, I don't want to watch ads either, right? Or if there's ads on the radio, I hurry and turn it off. Like we're so tired of being advertised to, but I do see like genuine, delightful marketing, magnetic marketing actually like being very resonant still. I don't think that that's gone away. I just think there's so much other noise out there that that's rare now. Like we don't have really as many, like even the Super Bowl ads, I had like strong opinions of like, I was not impressed with this year's Super Bowl ads. It just felt like it was just throwing massive stuff at us and just trying to like shock and awe us instead of actually connecting. So that's where I feel like that you get to the heart of who are you trying to connect to, get to the heart of who you are as a company, and then you show up to serve in your marketing and in your brand from that space. And you just have so much higher of a chance of actually reaching people and it being more effective. So I'm hoping as an industry that we can go that direction more so for our sake. I mean, we just can't, how do you survive with like there's ads everywhere? Like how does this, it's not sustainable, I don't
no,
think.
the most frustrating thing to me is I feel we're going like we got to the point where we were moving away from all the ads, but now they're all bringing them back. Amazon Prime and stuff, and I'm like,
Mhm.
no, we just escaped TV ads. Um,
Oh, I know. Well, even as I was driving on the freeway recently, one of the billboards around here said something like, uh, viewers can't swipe past this ad or something. I was like, oh, we're all that viewer, like
yeah.
that's, I don't want more billboards just because I can't ignore it as easily. Come on.
Yeah, completely. So I guess maybe the part we haven't uh touched on then is, let's say we do get the brand clarity and we figure out our audience. Let's, I guess, briefly talk a little bit of high impactful execution. Like, what are, like, how are we deciding what's most impactful, and how to be, rise above the noise in a way that people actually hear.
Absolutely. I think that there's a lot of ways I could dissect that. And in the interest of time, I'm like trying to think through the most effective. The things coming up for me are really looking at your funnel as a whole, like your actual marketing to sale process. And first of all, making sure that your bottom of funnel marketing is like on track. It's solid, meaning there are way too many companies. I still go to their websites or their apps or engage with them in some way, and their calls to action to get you to buy are not clear. And so just double checking, like, are we clear? Our sales call to actions are clear. They're easy to find. Like, the barrier of entry to actually work with us is really low. Make sure that that's happening, because anything you'd now do to like go spread the word and stand out, I think if you're sending it to a shaky foundation, you're not going to see those results that you want. So with that in place, then I think there's some really cool opportunities across a lot of platforms. And that's where, I mean, it's hard to maybe generalize it, but I'll just say, like video absolutely being a key place. And I think we've heard that for a couple of years, so it's not a surprise, right? But I don't see a lot of businesses still leveraging video well. So I still
Mm-hmm.
do feel like it is a blue ocean largely, especially when you look at what's happening on just organic TikTok, for example, and the way that that algorithm works. There's a lot of cool opportunities there to stand out and to actually get some fast feedback about what people are responding to and what they like, more so than just throwing out ads. So I am a big proponent of, if you're not sure, you're testing your messaging, testing your brand, playing with a platform like TikTok right now is a great way to just test the waters and see. It's a really affordable way to just show up authentically, organically, and just start speaking to, like, hey, this is what we care about. This is who we love to serve. Here's some fun success stories of transformations. Like, I was just talking to this CMO yesterday who works for a really cool tech company where they're trying to revolutionize the gaming industry for developers, because developers are always caught in this middle of, like, they're overworked and then they're getting laid off in the gaming industry. It's awful. And so they've got this really cool business model of helping developers. And he was telling me this cool success story that they put on their blog about one of their developers that lived in Belarus, but with then everything happening with Ukraine, they could no longer pay him, and he couldn't get business. And so then they helped him to relocate across all these countries in Europe to finally land in Ireland, where he was able to, like, set up a new life for himself. And I was just sitting there like, why is this not on TikTok? Why have you not tried taking his exact story and just making sure you have a video version of that content that tells that story and throw it out in these other channels? Because they just think there's things like that happening in our businesses and with the people that we're serving and the people who work with us, that it's just like normal to us. Or we're just like, well, everybody's doing this, but they're really powerful stories. And I think we could leverage those stories more. So probably through stories, through video, and just coming out with as clear of a message as you can around, this is who we are, this is what we do, and this is why it matters.
Excellent. Well, that's probably a good place to kind of wrap things up. So, Quinn, would love to hear, the three things you want to leave top of mind with our audience.
I would just say, don't be intimidated by that crowded marketplace. Just really dig into how can you show up to serve, and trust that that's enough, and that you don't have to be on all the platforms and all the places to stand out, that you really can choose and niche down in even just one platform or try one thing. And so remembering that, I guess, is the third final point, that the quality over quantity still wins and probably always will. And so anytime we're getting tempted of we've got to post X amount of times a day, or we've got to do X amount of things in order to be seen, in order to be taken seriously. Just always remind yourself quality will always trump quantity. And as long as you're showing up from that space, like, people will notice. Yeah.
Excellent. And how can folks find out more about with what you do or get in contact with you?
Absolutely. So they could definitely find me on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect there. And then if you have any needs for any digital marketing support with your business, we would love to support. And you can check out our website at disruptiveadvertising.com.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, Jana. It's so nice to connect.
Yeah. And to our audience, until next time, keep your organizations healthy.